Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about our content strategy. Now, in our previous chapter, we covered the keyword research and we put all of that information into a Excel document. So in this chapter, we're going to be expanding on that Excel document and doing a little voodoo, so to speak, to make sure that we have everything prioritized correctly. And this is what's going to be pushing forward with our content strategy. So let's dive right in. All right, so this here is our actual spreadsheet that we used before. Here on this tab, we have our keywords, and then using Answer the Public, we have our specific keywords, right? Now, I have not gone through all 316 keywords to get some Answer the Public results to determine what questions need to be answered based off the content. I haven't done that. That's a lot of stuff to go through. And I know for every one of you, it's going to also be a lot of work. So we're going to set up this document so that way when you do that and you add to the document, you can resort and prioritize your content. Now, the first thing we need to realize is types of volume. We have breakout. We have these numbers here. And we also have a 0 to 100. And then we have percentages. So we need to include a type column. So let's insert copy, insert copied cells. Now, the reason you want to insert it from there is so that you can actually retain the filter. That's the purpose of what we want. Volume type. All right, so basically that's still going to be breakouts. So let's uncheck. Well, let's do that. Let's check these percentages. So unselect all everything. Go through and select your percentages. Actually, you know what? Let's do this a little faster. Let's add a new column. Let's add 2 more. There we go. And then these other 2 columns you can highlight and delete. So let's call this check. So what we're going to do now is check for the last character here to see if that's a percentage. So we're going to do that with if let me spell this out, equal sign, the word if, open parentheses, the word right, open parentheses, select the cell to the right, actually select column B. So B2, 1 space or 1 character space, close parentheses, equals, quote, percent, quote, use double quotes there, comma, value of true, quote, percent, quote, comma, quote, other, quote, boom. I know that's a lot, but what that's going to do is that's going to check. So if we do equals right, that's going to pull in the last character, the right formula. That's what that's going to do. And then the if formula says if the right value equals percent sign, then say it's percent. But if that's not true, then say other, which is why we have other here. So replicate that all the way down. We're just going to have the box, the cell highlighted, and in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that the cursor changes from a white cross to a black cross. When it does that, double click, and that'll replicate that formula all the way down. So now we can just come in here. That didn't do it, which means that's a format. So interesting. Okay, that's unfortunate. We can't do that. So that sucks. That means we're back to selecting everything manually. Let's try a search for percent. There we go. That worked. So input our volume type, percent, and then copy, Control Shift down, and then paste. Now we can go back and select all. Okay. So there's that one. Now we're going to do another one to say if this number is 100 or less, that's going to give us our 0 to 100 calculation there. It's not an exact science, but it should be close enough. So we'll do another if. Well, let's start here at the first number. So if this number is greater than 100, then other, and if it's less than, call it the 100. Okay, other. So far, so good. Replicate that all the way down and check. That looks like it's working. So that's a 0 to 100 scale. And these are blank. So because these are blank, we want to classify these as NA or unknown. It helps if I spell. You can pick one of these two. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to go with NA because we don't have that data. But everything else, I'm going to go with 0, 100, and then what I'll do is I'll copy and then Control Shift up, which will take me, you can see that the volume type header line is highlighted, and then go Shift down, which will put me into the next one, and then paste. Cool. So now I can select all, and it's replicated again. Perfect. So that means everything else is just the actual volume. So on this volume type, we can scroll to the bottom and we can uncheck our 4 items. And now all of these are standard volume, which we'll call count. Because I've already have these colored in, I'm going to filter by color just to make sure we don't screw that up. All right, and then I'll do the first one. Cool. And then now all of them are here. Sweetness. So now we actually have a type of volume counter based on what type of volume calculation was done. Okay, this is very important. The reason why it's important is because of this next column, which is priority. So you need to determine for your own organization what is going to be the highest priority. Using these categories that we've put together, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So whatever we pick, this NA is going to be priority 5. It's going to be the lowest. So this is a reverse priority. So that means the higher number is a lower priority. That's what that actually means. So you need to determine breakout, count, which breakout also factors into the percentage sector, or 0 to 100. So which one of those is going to apply the best to you for creating content? Now, it's really going to be based off of preference. Okay, so I would say that count percent 0 to 100. So the count is your standard type of priority, which is a normal type. But then you have, because here you have actual volume, actual numbers, which that's really useful. And the problem that you're going to run into is percent and breakout. Breakout is greater than 5,000%, right? So if, let's say this one here, let's do this one. Let's say this one here, Lucky Star Lending, started out at 1, and now the percent is higher than 5,000. Let's say 5,010. So 1 times 5,010 is still 5,010. Let's say it was at 100, excuse me, for the actual search volume per month. So if it was at 100, then 5,000%, that doesn't add up. Anyway, the point is that if the search volume was 1, now it's 5,000. And because you don't have the actual count volume, you can't factor in exactly what the volume is now for these items. The only thing that you can factor in is recent search trends. Get that, recent search trends. So because we're talking about recent search trends, then breakout content would have the highest priority, because that means you have the highest chances of getting seen now, because this is what people are asking for now. It's a growing trend, and a growing trend is very different than a consistent trend. That's something to be important. Now, you could decide that a consistent trend is where you want to be, and a breakout trend is a bonus, right? A consistent volume is what you want versus a trend type of content. You could decide that for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But note, if you decide that you want to go with the count or the 0 to 100 as your factors, then that means that you're actively choosing not to use any type of trending content that's happening right now. The trending content is what you can utilize to get quick traffic now. It's going to be the fastest type of traffic you're going to get for SEO when you're talking about content. So that's a very different approach than what SEO normally is, which is the long game. So this car financing keyword, which is going to be hard for everyone to tap into, or loan calculator, even PPP loan or student loan, these high volume keywords are used all the time. So getting traffic with those keywords are definitely going to be harder than some of this trending content. Quite frankly, some of these lower keywords, if you tapped into all of these lower keywords, let's do 50 and below. So 50 below, that's 86 keywords. So you tapped into these 86 keywords, the probability of you writing all of that content is exponentially greater than you tapping into the top 5 and getting success. So there's a lot of different ways to approach that. And it's, at the end of the day, it's going to be based on whatever your preference is. But we know for a fact that those that don't have a defined volume can't have a priority. So those are at the bottom. So in this instance, I'm going to apply trend content first and count content second. So, but I'm going to do a staggered approach. So breakout is 1 because there's only 19 here. And on top of that, some of these are likely not even going to apply, which means that the client we're talking about, Pro Finance, they're likely going to be able to cut away some of these and not even have to create content for them. But after breakout, I'm going with the count, because the count gives you an actual volume of what's happening, right? But here's something to keep in mind. Here we have less than 1,000. So I would say that that is lower, less than 1,000 views per month. I would say it's probably lower than everything else. If you really wanted to get picky, you could say less than 5,000, which would be these, which would probably be more realistic, because that determines the priority of your content. So looking at the higher volume of these, all of these are definitely going to be 2. These would not be 2. So your highest priority right there. Great. Then we'll go back and select all of these. Now, so these are over 10,000, which is a big deal. Keywords over 10,000 a month, 10,000 searches a month are a big deal. These right here are 50,000, 130,000, 250,000, 450,000. Those are big deals, but those are also big keywords. And so you at least want to have some type of content for those bigger keywords, because you have to get visible, and you're not going to be able to determine how much traffic you're getting off of this content until you actually write the content. So that's something to think about. Let's clean this up a little bit. So these two are the same. Delete. These two are also the same. Delete. Small business loan. These are all the same. I'll just go with the simplest version of that. All right. Business loan. Cool. Line of credit. Cool. All right. So now we have, see how that realistically is shortened up. So that's 6. Right. 6 different types of content. That's your next priority. So let's select all again. And we'll take these numbers out. But actually, we need to go back here. We need to remove this NA because we're going to end up with a lot more than 5. And so if you were just doing it based off of the type itself, then you would end up with 5. But we want to go deeper. We want to get a strategy going, right? And that's what this is for. And so let's only show blanks. Okay. So we did the count. Next, we're going to look at the percentages of growth. And so for the percent of growth, we want everything that's over 1,000. So let's do a 3 here and copy that all the way up. Great. Now, you can go lower, but keep in mind, what we're talking about is a percent of growth, and we don't know the actual volume of what's happening here. So that's why this trend content is very different from regular consistent search volume. So we don't want to tap into all of it at once, which is why we're stopping at 1,000. Then moving on, we're going to do the 0 to 100. So everything above 50 will be priority 4. We'll do 70. Everything above 70 is priority 4. That'll keep it simple. Now you can see that some of these are different, right? Business line of credit for Chase, right? Well, we're not the Chase bank, but we could probably write some content on Chase. So that is your 70 and up. Then we can come back and look at what we have left over and basically cycle back through all of those again. So our numbers right now are up to 4. So then for our count, let's take our count down to 5,000. So this is going to be priority 5. And we're going to replicate that all the way down till we hit 5,000. Then we're going to switch to percent and do priority 6 all the way down to 500. Let's include 500 there. All right. And we're going to do our 0 to 100. This is going to be priority 7. We're going to do this all the way down to 30. We're basically just going to keep cycling through this until we get to the end. So this will be priority 8 all the way down to 1,000. Our percent which will be 9. We're going to do 500 down to 250. And then we'll do our 0 to 100. 10. Let's do that down to 15. In our count, we'll do 11. And we can take that all the way down to 500. Then we'll switch to percent. Take that down to 12 for all of those that's left over. Then we'll do 0 to 100. 13. 13's, well, we're going to do this all the way down to 10. And switch back to count. This one was going to be 14. Down to 200. Oh, we'll just go all the way down. It's not that big a deal. And then we'll switch back to our 0 to 100. And that one will be our final 15. That should be everything. So let's go ahead and select our NA. That's going to be 16. And now we should be able to select all, and then select all for our priority, and then just do a quick spot check to make sure we didn't forget any numbers. Nope. Now we're doing good. So it sounds like a lot of work, and it's just every one of those numbers I just kind of made up on the fly, to be honest. That's just kind of spot checking, like what's better than something else. And realistically, those numbers should work for you. But you're going to want to define explicitly what numbers do you want to use for yourself. And once you figure out what those are for your company, what thresholds you want to set, left, right, or whatever, that is what you want to go with. Now, this isn't some rocket science type of thing where if you go a little left, the whole thing's going to blow up, or if you go a little right, the whole thing's going to cave in. It's not like that. It's really going to be, what do you decide to do, and go with that, right? Because if you had, in a perfect world, I would take each 4 of these categories, prioritize all of them equally, and cycle content through all of them. And I would have 1 article a week being published minimum in each of these categories. That alone is going to be what kind of sets you apart, so that you're tapping into all of them at once. Now, realistically, a lot of people don't have that kind of time. A lot of people can't invest in writers to that level, which is unfortunate, because it's a humongous impact on how much traffic you're actually going to get. And so if you can create content for all of these, it's going to be phenomenal for you. So these 300 keywords, which all of this is used to tap into our questions. So now that we have our priority, we're going to sort by priority and then our volume. So select all, data, sort. You can't see that, at least I don't think you can. We're going to sort. My list has headers. Make sure you select that. We're going to sort by priority, smallest to largest, and then by volume, largest to smallest. That's important. Then click OK. So now all of our keywords are sorted by our priority, which is a big deal. So let's go ahead and save that before we get any further. So now, here is where the fun begins, because once you go through and you take these 300 keywords and you plug them all into, say, answer the public, what you're going to get is roughly, excuse me, roughly another 300 questions per keyword. So 300 by 300 is 9,000. So you're going to end up with 9,000 questions here, probably more, because off of these, excuse me, off of these 4 keywords, we have, 1,500 questions. So once you have this ready for all of these keywords, then we can create our excuse me. Excuse me. So once we have all this worked out, then we can figure out how are we going to approach our content strategy. We've prioritized our keywords. Now we need to figure out how to prioritize the questions. So the easiest way is to do them alphabetically. But that's not necessarily going to be that big of a leap. And some people have a hard time trying to keep track of alphabetical. Like for some people, it's going to be really hard to say, okay, here's all the A's. Okay, there's all the A's. Okay, there's all the B's. Okay, there's all the C's. Some people have a really hard time keeping up with that. So another thing is you could just leave it as is, take the golf approach and play it as it lies. While that's not a horrible idea, especially since we copied these directly from the spreadsheets for Answer the Public, that's not too terrible of an idea, because then you'll get all of your can questions together, your how questions, your what questions, your where questions, right? All of those questions will be co-located to a degree, right? It's really just going to be based off of what works better for you, right? And so what I would do is I would copy this cell here, insert a new cell, and then get rid of all of those and pull in the priority. So the way that we're going to pull in priority is going to be based off of a function called a VLOOKUP. So that's equals VLOOKUP, open parentheses. Then we're going to key over to the keyword itself, comma, navigate to our keyword section, and then we're going to highlight A through D, and you can see that that little thing pops up on the screen there, and it says a really big number R times 4C. If you hold this here while you're doing this, 4C is 4 columns. That's important because when we let go, comma, 4, comma. So basically what that means is look for our keyword and pull back in column 4 data. And then the final one is false, and close parentheses and go. So then replicate that again. So once you do all of that, you can either leave this formula in here or you can copy and paste as values. It's going to be your preference. Just know that if you leave the formula in there and you have, 10,000 plus keywords, it could slow down Excel quite significantly sometimes. I work with a lot of data. We're talking 10, 20 million lines of data in a database. And so when I'm working with, 100 to 500,000 lines easily, Excel slows down if I leave the formulas in. So it's a good practice for me to not leave the formula in there. I would recommend the same, but it's going to be up to you. So we can see right out the gate something's wrong here because we're missing 4 numbers. Well, we're not technically missing 4 numbers. So there's priority 2, business loan, line of credit, and SBA loan. And then our other keyword is small business loan. So that seems kind of odd. I would think that would be higher up on the totem pole. That's why. It's because we're doing an exact match. That's what it is. Okay. Yep. So nonetheless, though, once we have all this figured out here and we have our priority listing, then you can decide what are you going to write about. And so do you want to spend, the next 385 questions? Do you want to spend the next, 3 months, 6 months, a year writing about nothing but business loans? That's probably not the best use of time because as people, we need variety. So what we can do is highlight everything and sort. We want to sort by priority, small to large, and then add a new line, sort by question. Let's do A to Z. So at least then we have the potential to not write for the same exact keyword every time. And then hit OK. There we go. So here, while alphabetical may be out of the question, at least you're not writing for the same exact keyword all the time. Now that's a big jump there. Okay. But realistically, I mean, let's say that you come in here and you decide, okay, well, today I'm going to write about business loans, but tomorrow I'm going to write about line of credit. Okay, well, excuse me. Well, there's 2 questions right there. You can write about the good and the bad, and even write a 3rd article comparing the good and the bad and linking to a bad and a good. I don't know if that made sense. So you can create an article called, I don't know, line of credit, good or bad, then link that, actually put the link from this article into bad line of credit and link into this article as well for good lines of credit. So now you have 3 articles and 2 questions, right? If you wanted to, you could have one massive blog post for lines of credit, and then everything in line of credit, you would basically take the bulk of that stuff and you would write an article. So our line of credit bad, that seems like an awful awfully worded question, but to take this and then briefly describe bad lines of credit, or maybe link that to the good and bad, and then link to both of them, link to from the line of credit main to the bad, line of credit made to the good, and kind of build a linking strategy. We're talking about an internal link strategy, which is where you provide a link to another blog post within a blog post, another one of your blog posts. So all of that can be done based off of this type of information. Then you can decide the next day, you want to write about small business loans. Okay, well, there it is. Maybe you actually decide, I'm only going to write about the highest priority first, and then I'll write about SBA loans today, right? So you could use this as a filtration system of any kind to go through, excuse me, to go through, peruse, do it alphabetically, do it out. If you want to do it in reverse order, that's fine too. Just change your sort. It's this part is all about preference. It doesn't matter realistically if you write these two articles before any of these articles, because you're still tapping into the same keyword. And if you really want to dig deeper, you can go back and search for these questions in our keyword research time. You can go back and take all these questions, plug them in, and get exact search volume for the questions, and repeat this whole process. You can. If you're already running out of time, that's probably not the best thing to do, but that's something you can do. It's an option. Nonetheless, once we figure out what our keyword listing is, the priority of all those keywords based on volume and type, whether it's that trend we were talking about, right? We were talking about the breakout trend and the percent trend versus routine and regular traffic. Once you determine what that priority is based off of your keyword volume, and you have all of your questions ready, and you have some sort of system in place, or it's a random thing that you're going to do, once you define all of that, you can actually come in here and figure out when you're going to write what. So let's add another column here. So we'll call that author, and let's add one more. Let's call this one month, right? So let's say you have 3 authors, Jim, Jane, and Joe. And let's say the frequency of these authors is different, right? Now, like we talked about earlier about writing the same type of content over and over and over again is going to be crushing on your soul in most cases. But there are people who prefer to write just this stuff, okay? So let's say Jim's monthly frequency of articles is 4, Jane's is 6, and Joe's is 3. Okay, let's say that Joe only wants to write SBA content. Jane wants to write any content, and Jim will take most anything. That's a fair thing. Let's say this is how you've got it set up, right? So Joe, if he wants to write all the SBA content, that's great. Take all the SBA loan, plug in your author, Joe, and you can assign Joe all 382 questions, right? But realistically, with Joe only doing 3 articles a month, he's not going to get to those articles until at least 100 months, which is crazy, right? So don't assign all of them at once. Just we'll take the top 50, right? There's 50, and we'll leave the rest open, right? So we'll make this a 12-month plan. So if he's doing 3 times 12, we'll need, there's 60. So that's 5 times 12, okay. So we'll say month 1, 2, 3. There we go. There's 12 months of Joe content right there. So that's Joe. Joe's done, right? Joe is done. It's never going to work out this cleanly, but that's how this works out sometimes. So let's say Jim and Jane, you want to alternate the other keywords, right? So let's do Jim, Jane. Let's do it like that. 2, 4. So that's 1, 2. That's complicated. Jim does 4 articles. 1, 1, 1, 1. Well, it doesn't even matter. Let's take out Joe. So 4 times 12, 48. We need Jim to be here 48 times. 49, 48. Cool. There's 4, so that's 2, 2, 2, 2, 3. Cool. So now Jim's done. Excuse me. And then we have Jane. Sorry. There we go. So that's Jim is done. Then we have Jane. 12 times 6 is 72. So we'll take out these guys. Jane, 52, 73, 72. Okay. We can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. cool. So now we have, excuse me, all three of these authors taken care of. And that covers the next 12 months. And that's 156 articles that are now planned out for the next year. And they're based on your highest priority keywords, and they're based on your specific business decision, right? And then they're based on in which order you want to actually write content. So let's say, for instance, that we actually have one of these breakout items here. Then what we would do is this would be a priority 1 and have all three of these guys writing breakout content, maybe the first couple of months. I would probably see if you can't get Jim and Joe to publish more, honestly, because if Jane's putting down 6 and Joe's writing only 3 and he's only doing one topic, he should be able to double that easily. So maybe look at your processes and see what are these guys doing to actually write the content, because it's not going to be a situation where if one person can do it, everyone can do it. No. Joe might be 65 years old, so he might not type as fast as Jane, who's 26 with an MBA kind of thing. You know what I mean? So everyone's going to have varied levels of capability, and everyone's going to have different abilities to be able to provide and write and research. So all of that stuff has to be factored in to this. But once you factor in all those details, that's kind of why I made this quick chart here. Once you factor in all those details, it's going to be a lot easier to figure out what do you want people to create content for. And if the end result is, well, I'm the one creating all of this content, then basically you're doing the same thing for yourself. But once you have this figured out and scheduled out, now you can sort, okay, month 1, this is what we're doing. All right. Hey, Jim, Joe, Jane, let's keep on track for this. Hey, Jane, let's say this is, well, let's delete this crap here. Cool. Now that you have this figured out, you can come in here and say, okay, well, Jim's writing this one, Joe's writing this one, and Jane's writing this one. All right, cool. Now you have a tracking mechanism to figure out who's doing what when. And that cannot be more powerful than anything else, right? Okay, well, Jane, she knocked that one out. Cool. All right, she's going to work on this capital one here. Cool. Awesome. This right here is the most powerful thing ever. What I actually do is take all of this a step further. So I use ClickUp, and I'm not going to show you my ClickUp dashboard, but I will show you ClickUp briefly. And I need to navigate to my playground workspace that I use for not showing everyone all of my client data. Okay. So let me change the browser size. That should suffice. All right, so let me go ahead and remove this. All right, let's take all of these Jane articles. I'll just do them alphabetically here. And well, let's navigate to ClickUp first. Hold on. Okay. So once you get into ClickUp, let's say you wanted to create a new list. Boom, you have a list. We're going to call this list articles cool. So here, let's check the browse templates, and you can find that's not what I'm looking for, not even close. Oh God, I haven't been in this thing forever. I have multiple ones that I'm in all the time. We're looking for the status list. Okay. There we go. We're looking for content. Here we go. So you want to edit, click on the ellipsis here. Go to edit list of statuses. If you click on custom, this is what we're going to get to. Here's normal, Kanban, content, marketing, Scrum. Content is what we want. So select that and save. There we go. Cool. So now that we have that figured out, let's come in here and select all Jane articles. And so select the first one, make sure you're all the way at the top, which I have a habit of clicking here and hitting the down button. Once you have that, do a Control Shift down or Command Shift down and then copy. And so we're going to navigate to ClickUp. And this is the most sexiest thing that I love about ClickUp, especially for blog posts. Click in here, paste, create 72 tasks. Yes. So what that's going to do is that's actually going to create tasks for all of your keywords and your questions that need to be written. And then you can select all and assign them. Let's say I'm the writer, assign them to me. And it will assign, here's created by and assigned. So it'll assign all of those articles to me. So that is a beautiful thing. Then you just come back in here, do the same thing for Jim and Joe respectively. Copy, scroll to the bottom, add new task, paste, create all of their tasks. So now all of these tasks are in here. And if you want to take things a step further, you can do so much with these, right? Now you have 156 articles that are ready to be written, and you have a tracking mechanism, and it's easy to use. It's a beautiful thing. Now, to be fair, you don't have to actually use ClickUp. There's plenty of other tools out there. Even the free plan of ClickUp is worth it, but you don't have to. But I've been using this for well over a year. I've had it for 2 now, and it's a phenomenal thing. But that is what we need to do. Be able to assign content to your authors and be able to take things a step further. And if this question area is not enough, we can actually take things even better. And we're going to add a new column here. let's add some space. Let's call this, let's say you decide to use ClickUp. So you want to actually know what's the priority, what's the keyword, and then what's the question. Maybe you want all of this information. Okay. So task name. So we're going to do a concatenate, but we're going to do a simplified version. So we're going to do equals, pick the cell, and then use the and symbol. It's called an ampersand. So let's say you want to know who's writing it. That's going to get complicated. Then we need to know, then we need to add a dash, right? Let's go ahead and copy that. Okay. So cell dash and month dash and priority dash and keyword dash and question. Done. Oh, I forgot to and. There we go. Missed another one. And one more. Okay. Whew. That didn't work. That's why. I missed one. There we go. So as crazy of an idea as that is, that's not really that big a deal as long as you know what you're looking at. Some of the things that I actually do are similar. So I'll show you mine real quick. Content. Let's do traffic list. So this is my actual keyword research that I did for Carbon Digital. We determined we wanted to use traffic as our framework element. We added the number. So that's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way down. This is the ads section. This is the keyword we're using. And then this is the end result. So this is just to go through and get one article per keyword. That's not even, because I mean, we came up with 500 keywords across like 4 or 5 topics. So trying to keep it simple, but nonetheless, this is exactly what we used whenever we started looking at content in our articles. It's the same thing I'm talking about here. It's just taking that list, replicating it down, then you know who's writing it. Now, what I would not recommend is to actually put somebody's name in there, which would be that first one there. But if you wanted to start with month, then priority, that kind of, to a degree, makes sense, right? So, but you would want to fill this in at the bottom here, TBD, right? That way you're not, ooh, that's disgusting. For everything that does not have a month and is blank, you at least want to input something. That way your titles don't look stupid. There we go. Okay, so now you just take all of these, 1493, good Lord, and you go to here. I'm just going to delete these. Yep. And paste them in. And it's going to create 100 tasks at a time. That's the max it'll do. So start with your first 100, right? So go down till you hit 100, and then take the next 100, or you can just do them one page at a time, you know, and then click and then go down a couple of pages and just kind of run it like that. But nonetheless, there is a whole lot of stuff that can be done. There is never a shortage of content, and there is always a way to get traffic based off of content. So now that's what we do. So make sure you go through every one of your keywords that are going to be relevant for you, right? So we talked about answer the public, right? So let's say that you decide, I don't have time to do 300 keywords. Let's take the top 3. Let's take the top 5. The top 5 is 87. Maybe you can add this column. So questions prepped. That's a decent item here. Yep. And maybe you can then use this list of 87 as a checklist. You know, yes, we did all of those. We got all those questions. Okay, we got all of those. Got all of those, and just go down the list like that. So based off of what we're capturing here, this already is way too much. You don't even want to go outside of the priority 1, just because it's so much content, right? So you can focus on the first 20 here and get, 5,000-10,000 questions easy. Excuse me. So that's what you want to do. Make sure you capture all of your relevant keywords. You want to make sure that all of your relevant keywords that have been captured, you've translated into a question, so you have an actual topic to write about. And then from here, once you determine who's going to write what and the priority and how that keyword ties back to the question and whatnot, all of this is what you utilize to drive the actual strategy of where do you go, left, right, whatnot. And unfortunately, there's not too much information out there on, which direction's best for me. That's not a question that I can answer. The only question that I can really answer is, what options do I have? And so that's kind of what I've tried to answer here today. But realistically, this here is probably the best advice you're ever going to get. It's not rocket science, but you have to make a decision and kind of stick with it. Actually, you really don't. You really don't have to make a decision. You can just go through all of your keywords. You could take those keywords, turn them into questions, and you could write at random. You could create content at random until your 20, 30, 40, 100,000 questions are answered. It's not a good strategy, but you could. So I know there's a lot of factors here. I know there's a lot of decisions to make. I know that there is a lot of information here, and you're probably going to have to watch it a couple of times, but go slow, pick which direction you want to go, and kind of stick with it. And make sure you document which direction you go, right? So we decided to do breakouts. Well, that's kind of over here, but make sure you decide, you annotate what criteria did we build our priority listing on. So if that's going to be, one is breakout. Okay, cool. You could probably actually put this on another sheet. Call this priority list or criteria or whatever, right? So you would say, breakout, and then count is down to 10,000, down to single digits, basically. So then we would do something like this. All right, so we're gonna do the type is breakout. The priority is 1. And the next one is 2. I don't like that. There we go. 3, 4. We'll call this one threshold. All right, so then keyword for the count down to 10K. So we would call this count greater than 10K. Then we would look at 3. All right, percent greater than 1K. Greater than 1K. So we could go through and do all of this to annotate and document what we actually have here. And so this is going to give us a framework to be consistent moving forward. And realistically, you could do this type of research every month. You really could. You could do this research every week, but that would be a little excessive based on the amount of volume that we're getting here. But not every industry is going to have this much volume. Some industries like this might be, keep in mind that I've been doing this for a while and a lot of you guys haven't. This could be your total list and you're thinking, where do I go from here? These 20 or so keywords are not really going to help, and that's very true. They're not. So as long as you document what you're doing and why you're doing it, well, not even the why, as long as you document the what, you can make this a consistent process. And that's kind of all that this is supposed to be, is to create a consistent framework for you to be able to determine what is what. And so, yes, I know that's a lot. It really is. But that's because it is a lot. Keyword research, content strategy. Creating a content strategy is no joke. And that's why people charge so much to do this type of stuff, is because it is a lot of work, a lot of strategy, and we haven't even factored in a lot of the information that I would use. We're just going strictly off of volume of search criteria for the volume of the keywords being searched. That's the only thing we've used here. We've not even factored in, the advertising side. We've not factored in the marketing side. We've not factored in revenue generation, revenue related content or anything like that. So there's a lot of factors that go into this, but nonetheless, we've now got a framework on which to create content to now garner more traffic, to try to steal some of that traffic away. And that's exactly what you need as a plan. Now, let's go execute. See you guys in the next video.